Alrighty, so it's been a while since I've done one of these videos because there really isn't any important news to talk about in the News of the Week episode during the playoffs until now. We definitely had some interesting news that happened, especially involving head coaches and even a potential big signing that could happen this offseason. But we also have a news that I won't mention in this video, but I'll do a single video about this regarding there's a potential that there could be a huge overhaul in terms of how the playoffs is going to happen starting next season. But first of all, we talk about probably the biggest news that just came out today is that the Portland Timbers is reported to be in advanced talk with Brazilian midfielder Evander from Danish Super League Midjytland. Now, if you guys probably have heard of this club, this is the same club that basically bought the likes of Hani Mukhtar and Michael Roux to MLS. And safe to say that both of those players are very decent for their respective club, including one of those certain player that is in running for the MVP award and potentially could win the MVP this season. And I have heard that there's a lot of people saying that this guy is going to be similar to Hani Mukhtar and that when he does come to MLS, he is going to blossom. Now, the amount that the Timbers potentially have to pay him is definitely very steep. I mean, there's a report that it could be up to $15 million because that's the release clause that he has, though some people say that it could be less. And if it is indeed $15 million, this would be one of the most expensive transfer we have ever had in league history. But either way, there's no doubt that the Timbers are desperate in terms of finding a true number 10. I mean, they tried with Sebastian Blanco, but you can see Blanco hit with the way that it looks like his age, and it seems like he just never really recovered from that injury that he suffered last year in the playoffs. They really need a number 10 in this situation, and that, again, this is a perfect fit for them, and that if indeed he is going to be similar to the quality of what we saw Hani Mukhtar is in MLS, this could be a huge signing for the Timbers, and we'll see whether or not if it's going to complete in the near future. Now, the Timbers also announced that they have signed Giovanni Savarese to a long-term contract extension. Now, I know that there's some people might not like this because of the fact that, this year it was a very underwhelming year for the Portland Timbers, and that this is the first time that a Savarese-led Timbers side have missed the playoffs. But I can understand why he is offered a long-term contract, and also not to mention there are some parts of the Timbers fan base have definitely not been happy with Savarese tactics, and even some go as extreme that they want Savarese to be no longer with this team. But I think this is a good choice because of the fact that sometimes you need some stability in the head coaching role. Like with how chaotic the Timbers has been this season, both on and off the pitch, and especially in the front office and the ownership with the ongoing allegation that is going on, they need some stability, and I think this would definitely do so. And not to mention, yes, I know it's been an underwhelming year for the Timbers under Savarese, but you got to remember he is still a guy that has done a lot for this Timbers side. I mean, he has guided this team to multiple MLS Cup, albeit they haven't won either of them. They guided them to the all-important MLS is Back tournament trophy, and also not to mention, besides this year, he has made the playoffs with the Timbers every single year he has come in. So I think with that kind of accomplishment, I think it would be incredibly harsh if they decided to fire him or after missing the playoffs this season, and potentially even not getting him a long-term contract extension. So yeah, I think this is a good move to the Timbers. I mean, as long as the Timbers can get some talent in and that Savarese don't just maybe wait until like the second half of the season to try to do a crazy resurgence, I think this is gonna work out fine in the end. Now, another good move that is made in terms of head coaching is Charlotte FC, who they have officially made it that they're going to be promoting Tristan Latanzio as their permanent head coach, which, again, this should not be a big surprise because we knew this was going to happen. I mean, considering the fact that, this Charlotte team, I mentioned how they are a team that really surprised a lot of people of how well they done in the first season, consider the chaos that they also had to go through both on and off the pitch. And even when Latanzio was promoted as the interim head coach, everybody thought that this team was going to be a wooden spoon winner. Well, not only that is not the case, but it wasn't even close. Like, he guided this team in a way where they were close in terms of even making the playoffs this season. And I can't imagine if he is able to get some actual talent in this team, because we know that in terms of talent-wise, they are still well and truly short of that that mark. But if he can actually sign some players that can make this team much better, who knows? He could be a decent head coach for Charlotte. And that, again, I think this is like what I said about the Timbers in terms of this organization that's going on and off the pitch throughout the season. That's the same case for Charlotte FC. They need to have some stability, and that this is exactly the way to do so. Now, speaking of head coaches, we had one big report came out a couple of days ago that the Columbus Crew is reported to target Montreal head coach Wilfried Nancy as their next head coach. Now, this is something we usually don't see happen often, where maybe a team decide to target another head coach that is still the current head coach of a team, and that this would definitely be a big surprise and maybe a jaw-dropping kind of move if Wilfried Nancy decided to leave Montreal to go to Columbus, because I feel like what he has done for Montreal and the environment that he's in, it fits perfectly. I mean, remember when he was promoted as the head coach, he used to be the academy coach for Montreal, and he's been with the team for a very long time. So it wouldn't make sense if he decided to leave the team after a successful year to join another team if he had such a long relationship with them. But the only thing I can maybe think why Nancy could potentially go to Columbus is the fact that if Montreal decided to go on a bit of a fire sale, well, actually, I wouldn't say fire sale is the right word to do so, but more like they're trying to cash out in terms of all the young talent that they have in terms of selling them off to Europe. I mean, they already cash out in terms of Georgi Mihailovic, of them sending him to AZ Alkmaar this off season, but there's definitely some other pieces on that Montreal side that you can see that they could be moving on to Europe, and that Montreal, of course, can get some big money out of that. But at the same time, one of the things that Montreal fans really fear is the Joe Saputo ownership group, and that this is an ownership group that has not really been known in terms of reinvesting that money and creating a decent squad and replacing some of them. And we've seen before where sometimes teams, when they do sell off too much of their asset, it could definitely come back to haunt them. I mean, a great example was New England this season. They sell off some of their good asset, and now this season they turns out to have a really bad season. So maybe that is something that Wilfried Nancy might be thinking, where, if this team is going to be sell off pieces and that they're going to be down to the bone, maybe he might need to jump ship and join a team that is the Columbus Crew. That, again, this is a team that should not miss the playoffs this season. Like, with the talent that they had, this team should have not missed the playoffs. And the only reason why you can say that they missed the playoffs is single-handedly because of those late games collapse. And also, a lot of Crew fans has agreed that Caleb Porter, whatever his tactics that he used in the final 15 minutes, are some of the worst tactics you can use in a game. Now, speaking of bad, so there is a report suggesting that the Houston Dynamo is targeting Ben Olsen as their next head coach. And if this, of course, is the case, you know how Dynamo games, there's always a lot of empty seats? Oh, there's going to be more empty tier seats if this does happen. I mean, again, this is no disrespect to Ben Olsen. I think he's done a good job doing his tenure as a head coach of DC United for a whole decade. But I'm pretty sure every DC fans can tell you that, yeah, he was there way too long, and that the tactics that he uses is very MLS 1.0. It's very outdated. So this is kind of the last thing that the Dynamo needed, to hire a head coach that use tactics that are incredibly boring and just, again, looking at those DC teams under Ben Olsen final days, I mean, those are some of the worst team and some of the most boring team I've seen an MLS team can play in a competitive game. So this would not make sense if that is going to be the case. And again, this will also is another example of the Dynamo being cheap in terms of looking for players and even for head coaching. I mean, again, a lot of people question this front office when they decided to get Paulo Nakamura, a guy that wasn't really a guy that a lot of people think that he was going to be the Dynamo head coach, and eventually he was. And it feels like it's the cheap option, and it feels like this is the same thing. And cheapness is something that Dynamo fans just don't want to hear, because they know cheapness in terms of their last ownership, and they thought that with this new ownership it was going to be changed. But if this is going to be the decision, then yeah, they're going to be upset again and wants this new ownership out as soon as possible. Speaking of front office, we did have a firing involving a front office member, and that is Lucy Rushton from DC United officially being fired for the team, and I'm pretty sure DC fans only are happy with this move, but they said that this is just the beginning. Again, DC, when you look at this team, it is a mess from top to bottom in terms of the front office, and firing their GM is really only the beginning of the option. A lot of them wants their owner to eventually sell the team because of the cheapness that they and the incompetence that they have put. So at least this is a good start for them. But we'll see whether if it's gonna continue in the way that, again, this is a team that they want to get themselves back to the glory that they had in the early days of MLS. They need a drastic change in terms of the ownership group that they have and the front office member that they have. Now, moving on in terms of the next news, and sticking with talk about front office role and head coach, we got Phil Neville and Chris Henderson report to receive a one-year extension with Inter Miami. Now, I was kind of surprised that Inter Miami only offer a one-year extension for Chris Henderson because, as I mentioned, Chris Henderson, he's considered one of the best GM and sporting director in MLS, coming from the Seattle Sounders reign, and that you can clearly see what he has done in his short time with Inter Miami. Well, I mean, it took him a while in terms of cleaning up the mess, but what Inter Miami has done this season is nothing short of a miracle, and that I think this is just the beginning of what we could see. This team definitely has a bright future. Now, in terms of Phil Neville, I can understand why he decided they gave him one more year to see how it goes, because again, I know there's going to be a lot of critics with Phil Neville, and I was one of them. And that, again, he has proven a lot of critics wrong with the way that he's able to guide this team to be successful. But we'll see whether that could continue or if this is just kind of a flash in the pants. But with Chris Henderson, really surprised that he's only got a one-year extension, because he has done a miraculous job with Inter Miami, considered with the limited amount of resources and also the sanction that is still put on them, even heading into next season that is in place. Now, New England Revolution striker Gustavo Bo is rumored to be interested with Argentine Premier Division club Racing Club. Now, this move, if this does happen, I wouldn't be surprised, because Gustavo Bo, he's a guy that has been kind of an injury prone and also has really not been the same player that we saw when he came into the league. I remember when he came into the league with the Revs, he was definitely a difference maker, and he was a guy that always scores the big goals, but now it just doesn't seem like that is the case, and it feels like they are trying to move on from him, especially with the way that they, of course, got Veroni now, and potentially he's going to be the future number 9 for this team. There could be a saying that they could sell him off, and I think there's also times where they have put Bo out of position, where, again, I don't think that was the best idea, and that maybe that kind is a reason why his number in terms of goal scoring has definitely been down compared to when he came into the league. But we'll see whether if the Revs does decide to move on. I mean, the money that they're going to get, I think it was $2.5 million. It's definitely tempting, but we'll see whether if that is going to be the case. Now, moving on in the next news, we got Ricky Puig and Jose Morello both have been fined for simulation and embellishment by the disciplinary committee, and this is not a big surprise because I mentioned before in that El Tráfico game, yeah, I mean that was classic El Tráfico shenanigans where Ricky Puig decided to kind of headbutt Jose Morello, and while it wasn't really an incredible headbutt like a Zidane kind of headbutt, it was enough where Jose Morello decided that he basically just got shot and basically went down on the ground holding his face. And again, everybody knew that he basically decided to do that so that maybe Ricky Puig can get sent off, and obviously that didn't work. And again, in the end, I still do agree that was the right call. I mean, I know some people say that it should have been a red card, and I feel like it would have been if it was like any other regular season game, or if this was an El Tráfico in the playoffs, where again, if that was a red card, I think that would really ruin what El Tráfico would be, and not to mention in a more comedy kind of ways. Don Gabbert is holding the gun behind the VAR official and specifically told the referee that if you dare to send Ricky Puig off, there's going to be some consequences that you can be suffering. So yeah, there was no way in the world I thought he would have been sent off, though albeit it was absolutely unacceptable kind of discipline that Ricky Puig had shown in that you. Again, I know he's still a young player, but that is kind of something that he's got to learn in those big games like that. He cannot lose his emotion and lose his cool, because if you lose your cool like that, you can definitely get in serious trouble in terms of being sent off. And again, he was very lucky because of the scenario that the game is, that he did not get sent off because of that situation. But that's also not to excuse with Jose Murillo that, again, with the way that the league has really emphasized in terms of players diving and maybe trying to practice the dark arts, you're going to be paid for it if you decided to do that. Now, St. Louis SC has announced that they have renamed their stadium to City Park after the Centenny group decided to drop their naming rights. Now, the thing is that I've heard that Centenny is still partners with St. Louis, but with a different way. But yeah, this is definitely not a good scenario or not a good situation for St. Louis. And again, I'm not quite sure exactly why that is the case. I mean, I heard rumors maybe it's due to the fact that there's some faulty construction parts that they made when they built the stadium, and that I think that the stadium kind of got flooded a little bit, and now there's even question that whether or not if it's even going to be ready for the start of next season. And Centenny decided that we want no part of that. We're going to maybe drop down in a less role, but it's also not good in a way where we see a lot of these MLS team. A big way for them to of course get a lot of infusion of cash is stadium rights. I mean, they sell their stadium rights so that they can get that sums of money that pumps into the team. And this is something that is not just MLS team. We see it every single sports team in the US where they sell their naming rights because they want that extra money to pump into the team. So now the fact that they don't have that money, I mean, again, this is definitely not a good scenarios for St. Louis. But one thing I will say is that as much as we have seen some expansion team when they come to MLS with some difficulty, because when you look at these last couple of expansion team, I mean, most of them has had some issues in some sorts in terms of coming into the league, and most of them turns out to be well. I mean, Charlotte is a great example where they had tons of issues with front office member moving on and them being kind of short of roster heading into the beginning of the season, and then it turns out to do well. So I don't think this is something that St. Louis should be, or St. Louis fans should be too worried about, but it's definitely something that is kind of bad news with the way that, again, the teams do lose out those extra cash for them selling the stadium rights that they definitely would have got if Centenny decided to step with the naming rights of the team stadium. Now, moving on in terms of the next news, and an unfortunate news that we have to report is that Perry Kitchen has decided to retire, and actually forced to retire due to an injury, and that this was the injury that he suffered back in the pandemic year. It was a back injury that just never really recovered, and you always hate to see when players have to force to retire due to injury. But certainly, I wish Perry Kitchen the best for the rest of after he has retired, because again he was a very serviceable MLS players, especially during his time with the Galaxy. And again, very sad to see a player have to retire due to injuries. But on a more lighter news, Chris Wondolowski is reported that he could get a Hollywood film based on him. Now, I know Wando has always got the treatment in terms of being a legend for the Quakes, and obviously I'm thinking in a couple of years they are going to definitely build that statue in front of PayPal Park, but not even in my wildest dream I think they were going to make a Hollywood film about him. And whatever Hollywood film that they're going to make about him, let's just hope it's going to be a good one, because I've seen before where there's films that base on athletes and all the challenges that they have to gone through. Some of them don't actually produce very well. So let's just hope this is going to be a good one, because the journey that Wando has gone through, it's something very unprecedented in terms of being just a professional soccer player that we have seen before, not only in MLS history, but really in this game in general. Now, moving on into the last news, and kind of just go over in terms of the end of season award, because we started to now hear a couple of end of season award winners that has announced. I always find it kind of interesting that MLS decided to announce it like one by one and not just do like a huge ceremony where they announce all of them like maybe some other leagues does here in the US. But in terms of the Coach of the Year award, it's actually Jim Curtin that won the Coach of the Year award, and it was very close. Like, I heard there was reports that the margin between him and Wilfred Nancy was only like 0.1%, but in the end, Jim Curran does get the award. Though, again, I know there's going to be some people that are not happy about that. I mean, Jim Curran has done a great job with the Philadelphia Union. But, again, I can understand why some people feel like Wilfred Nancy or even Pat Nolan might have got robbed. I think Pat Nolan probably got robbed more with the way that he wasn't even coming close to being recognition, but Wilfred Nancy absolutely got robbed with the way that, with him just kind of turning around a team like Montreal from a team that has suffered so many playoff or so many years spending in the basement of, well, near the basement of the Eastern Conference to get them to second position in the East is just nothing short of a miracle. But I think for Jim Curran, maybe he won it because of the fact that the Union was just an absolute buzzsaw, especially near the second half of the season where they were just running people over with them, lighting up the scoreboard left and right. Now, the Young Player of the Year, you got Jesus Ferreira, which, again, not a big surprise. I mean, I think everybody knew that Jesus Ferreira was going to win. Same with Jacob Glesnes winning Defender of the Year. I mean, there was some good shout on that, but I think you got to say that it's got to be coming from one of the defender from the Union. I mean, between him and Jack Elliott, you can definitely maybe do a coin flip in terms of who exactly win the Defender of the Year. Goalkeeper of the Year also come from the Union. You got Andre Blake winning the Goalkeeper of the Year for the third consecutive year. And again, there's definitely some good shout around. I mean, this is Goalkeeper of the Year is also a award that I have seen before where, it could be tough to choose because there's so many good goalkeepers in MLS, but in the end, Andre Blake, I mean, there's a reason why he has still is considered probably the best goalkeeper in MLS for the past couple of years because the consistency that he has and the way that I've mentioned many times before where he is single-handedly stealing points for the Union because of his incredible performance. Yeah, there's no doubt that he deserved the Goalkeeper of the Year, and now I think also make league history of becoming the first goalkeeper to win free Goalkeeper of the Year in their career. Now, Newcomer of the Year, you got Thiago Almada, and again, this is another one that is kind of a bit controversial because, again, I didn't think Almada really lived up to the price tag that he has. Sure, yes, he had some amazing goals and assisted some of them, but the amount that he has, when you look at the number and the amount that he contribute, it definitely was not somewhere they were hoping that they could for a guy that basically they paid him a lot of money to get in a MLS record kind of transfer. I mean, I would say that if there is one player that can come off top of my mind that clearly got robbed with this award, it's got to be Georgi Petrovic. I mean, Petrovic with him coming in the middle of the season. And I know usually mid-season acquisition, we don't usually see them win the award, but I think with Petrovic and his performance for the Revs, he should have definitely got a shout. You got to also maybe give a shout to Cucho Hernandez too, a guy that literally when he came into the league, he broke records with him scoring goals immediately, and that could have been used as a Newcomer of the Year, but I guess maybe Thiago Almada just did enough in terms of getting the award, even though, again, some people think that maybe isn't the case. And the same goes for Goal of the Year, where, again, this is another award that is very hard to please anyone, especially with the way that I think this award actually is voted by fans. So Atlanta United fans are going to be probably the one that's going to stuff the vote, and indeed that is the case. They decided to stuff the vote and give Joseph Martinez goal that he scored that bicycle kick goal. I mean, I feel like the last couple of years, bicycle kick goal has been the one that has always voted for Goal of the Year. And don't get me wrong, bicycle kick goals are nice, but there's also some crazy bangers that we've seen that's not bicycle kick related that you could say that deserve to be Goal of the Year. But who do I know? I mean, this is a award that I think it's probably maybe the most controversial award because there's always a lot of people have different opinion of what exactly the greatest goal that they've seen this season. But again, the Joseph Martinez one, that was spectacular. Like, not only the fact that he hit that one off of a bicycle kick, but the way that he generated that much power on the bicycle kick, that is kind of Puskás level kind of recognition, and I won't be surprised this might be one of the candidates for the Puskás word that they tends to have in terms of the best goal that has scored in a whole season in the world of football. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of these news I put here on the board. And as always, if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board, let me know in the comments below. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.